The cabin beckoned, a rustic sanctuary amidst towering pines. Sunlight dappled through the trees, painting the clearing in a mosaic of light and shadow. Little did I know, darkness lurked beneath the idyllic facade. The air grew crisp as I approached, the scent of pine needles filling my lungs. A sense of calm washed over me, replacing the tension I hadn't realized I was carrying. Stepping inside, I was greeted by the comforting aroma of cedar and wood smoke. Dust motes danced in the golden light filtering through the windows. For the first time in months, I felt truly at ease. As evening approached, the sky transformed into a canvas of bruised purple and fiery orange. The wind picked up, whistling through the trees with increasing intensity. A sense of unease settled over me, a stark contrast to the tranquility of earlier. The first drops of rain began to fall, gentle at first, then transforming into a torrential downpour. The wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows and shaking the cabin to its core. The power flickered, plunging the cabin into darkness. Fumbling for my phone, I used its dim light to navigate through the unfamiliar space. I found a flashlight and some candles, the flickering flames doing little to dispel the oppressive darkness. As I huddled on the couch listening to the storm's fury, a new sound reached my ears. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the cabin, every gust of wind sent shivers down my spine. The scratching sound returned, more insistent this time, seeming to come from the attic. My imagination conjured up images of clawed creatures lurking in the darkness above. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand as I slowly made my way to the attic door. Each step was an act of will, my mind screaming at me to turn back. But I had to know, had to confront the source of the unsettling noise. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door. The attic stairs groaned in protest, the sound amplified in the oppressive silence. The flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing a chaotic jumble of forgotten treasures and discarded furniture. Exhaustion finally claimed me, but sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued me, filled with shadowy figures and unseen horrors. Morning arrived, gray and dreary. The storm had passed, leaving behind a trail of fallen branches and a lingering sense of unease. I tried to convince myself that the previous night's terrors were simply a product of the storm, of my own overactive imagination. But doubt lingered, a dark seed sown in the fertile ground of my fear. I decided to venture outside, hoping that fresh air and sunlight might help to dispel the lingering shadows of the previous night. But even in the daylight, the woods seemed different, menacing. Seeking solace from the oppressive atmosphere of the woods, I retreated to the relative safety of the cabin. The air outside was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. As I passed the fireplace, something caught my eye. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows that danced on the walls, revealing a hidden object. It was a small, leather-bound journal, tucked discreetly beneath the kindling. Its worn cover suggested it had been there for quite some time. Curiosity piqued, I picked it up, brushing away the layer of dust. The journal felt heavy with secrets, its pages waiting to be uncovered. The first few pages were blank, but as I flipped through, I discovered faded ink entries written in a spidery hand. Each page seemed to whisper its own story. The handwriting was difficult to decipher, but I could make out fragments of sentences, words like darkness, whispers, and fear. The more I read, the more a sense of dread settled over me. As I delved deeper into the journal, the entries became more frequent, the writing more frantic. It was as if the author was desperately trying to convey a warning. The author described strange occurrences, shadows moving in the periphery, whispers in the dead of night. The descriptions were vivid, almost too real. The final entry was chilling in its brevity. It's here. I can feel its presence. God help me. The words sent a shiver down my spine. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I was not alone in this cabin. The realization hit me like a wave, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching me. The journal's words echoed in my mind, fueling the fear that threatened to consume me. I paced the confines of the cabin, my thoughts racing. I had to get out of there, had to escape the suffocating atmosphere of dread that permeated the very walls. But as I reached for my car keys, a sudden realization struck me. The scratching, it had been coming from the attic. Armed with the flashlight and a growing sense of dread, I once again climbed the creaking stairs to the attic. This time, I moved with more purpose, pushing aside boxes and old furniture, determined to uncover the source of the scratching. As I reached the far corner of the attic, beneath a dusty, cobweb-draped window, I made a chilling discovery. A loose floorboard creaked under my weight, echoing through the silent cabin. Crouching down, I shone the flashlight beam into the darkness beneath, my breath held in anticipation. That's when I saw it, a small wooden box, tucked away in the shadows, almost hidden from view. My heart pounded in my chest, a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity gripping me tightly. Reaching out with trembling fingers, I carefully lifted the box, feeling its weight and texture. It was surprisingly heavy, the wood cold and damp against my skin sending a chill through me. As the lid creaked open, a musty odor wafted out, sending a shiver down my spine and making me shudder. The flashlight beam illuminated the contents, a collection of strange objects, a tarnished silver locket glinting faintly in the light, a lock of hair tied with a faded ribbon, its color long lost to time, and a small leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and worn. My heart lurched as I realized what it was. A human skull, its empty sockets staring up at me from the darkness, a silent witness to untold stories. Adrenaline surged through me, overriding the paralyzing fear. I scrambled to my feet, stumbling blindly through the darkness. The growling grew louder, closer. Something brushed against my leg, sending a fresh wave of terror through me. I kicked out wildly, my foot connecting with something solid. I didn't dare stop to see if I'd injured whatever lurked in the darkness. I had to get out, had to escape the nightmare that had ensnared me. My hands found the rough wood of the attic stairs. I half fell, half stumbled down the steps, my lungs burning with exertion. I stumbled out into the night. The sound of my own ragged breathing filled my ears as I crashed through the undergrowth. Branches whipped at my face, tearing at my clothes, but I didn't slow down. Fear lent me wings, propelled me forward with a strength I didn't know I possessed. The woods were alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs, the distant hoot of an owl. Each sound sent a jolt of terror through me, my imagination transforming them into the footfalls of my unseen pursuer. I stumbled and fell, my hands scraping against the rough bark of a tree. Pain shot through my ankle, but I couldn't stop. I broke free of the trees, stumbling onto a dirt road. The dirt road led to a paved highway, bathed in the pale glow of streetlights. Relief washed over me, so profound that I sank to my knees, gasping for breath. My body ached, my clothes were torn, and my lungs burned, but I had escaped. A car approached in the distance, its headlights cutting through the darkness. I raised a hand, waving frantically. The car slowed, then stopped beside me. The driver, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, peered out at me with concern etched on her face. She helped me into her car, her touch surprisingly gentle. The woman, bless her kind heart, took me to the nearest hospital. Her kindness was a beacon of hope in my darkest hour, a reminder that humanity still had its angels. They treated my injuries, a sprained ankle, numerous cuts and bruises, and the doctor on duty listened patiently as I recounted my harrowing tale. His calm demeanor and gentle touch were a stark contrast to the chaos I had just escaped. He attributed my experience to shock and exhaustion, assuring me that there was a perfectly rational explanation for everything I had seen and heard. His words were meant to comfort, but they felt hollow against the weight of my fear. I wanted to believe him. I clung to his words like a lifeline, hoping they would anchor me back to reality. I desperately needed to believe him. The alternative was too terrifying to consider, a descent into madness I wasn't prepared to face. but the memory of those glowing eyes, the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, lingered like a shadow over my heart. It was a darkness that no amount of rational explanation could dispel. I never returned to the cabin. The mere thought of it sent shivers down my spine, a visceral reaction that I couldn't control. The thought of setting foot in that place again filled me with a primal terror that I couldn't shake. It was as if the cabin itself had become a living entity, a malevolent force that would consume me if I dared to return. But even in the relative safety of my own home, surrounded by the familiar comforts of my life, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains, felt like a whisper of impending doom. Some doors are meant to remain closed. They hide the truths we are not ready to face, the nightmares we are not prepared to confront. And sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones we carry within ourselves. They are the echoes of our darkest fears, the shadows of our deepest regrets, and they are always with us, lurking just beneath the surface.